Come and see.
It should be up at the top. There you go.
Yeah, I wasn't. Okay, you're in business. All right, so here's my kitchen table and the view out through the sliding patio doors. Most of the time I would have the patio door open and I'm just sitting there, usually with a cup of coffee, maybe some Beethoven playing in the background. And I was getting a lot of interesting birds coming to my feeders, but you can't make good photographs of birds on feeders. So I contemplated how I could take advantage of the birds being close, but make photographs that look natural. And so the solution was to put up perches.
Sorry, excuse me, Ron. Ron, Victoria here.
Yeah.
What I can see is your presenter notes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're not seeing the. Oh,
We need to see the presentation view, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. We want to see the photos. So
Kidding.
yeah,
Oh, that's not it.
that's getting close.
Getting bigger.
No, I've got to somehow reverse these screens. Sorry. It's
No
working
problem.
the way it's supposed to on my system. Thanks for letting me know about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Victoria.
Take your time.
Yeah.
Take your time.
Is that
I know-
any different?
No,
we're-
that's the same.
Okay, well, my only other option is that I won't have my notes. So
no, this is a problem. Yeah.
I'm just going to mirror the main screen here.
Amazing.
Well, why don't you make it full screen?
Hang on.
There's a button up
I gotta
up here
get
in the,
back to my main screen here. I got too much showing. This Zoom stuff is, how's that?
That's
Oh, we're
better.
getting there.
Better.
That's the
Excellent.
ticket. That's the ticket. Excellent.
Okay. So now you're going to get a totally off the cuff presentation. All my preparation was,
Oh, what a shame.
all right. Is that steady down now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all right, you're seeing
That's nice.
you're seeing the full picture now, right? Are you?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I decided to put up some perches, and so this is the view. It's my yard isn't anything special, but what I have got is the Nunes Creek ravine right at the back of my lot, and you can see my feeder line here. And the feeders, the perches that I put up are along the right-hand side. There's 3, 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to talk about the bird bath a little later. That's been kind of a revelation for me. But the perches were located such that I knew I would get a good, clean, but interesting background for the bird pictures. And that has worked out very, very well. I've been spending a lot of time sitting either at the open door in good weather or at the table when it's not so good, just watching the birds. There's always something going on out there. so it's never boring. And when a bird lands in an appropriate spot on one of the perches, I grab the camera and take a picture. Now, we have our meals at that kitchen table, and my camera is always sitting there in front of me. One evening, a week or so ago, we were having dinner. This hummingbird lit on the perch right in a patch of really nice late evening sun. So I picked up the camera and I waited for the bird to turn his head to catch the light. And that's how this picture was made. I just laid down my fork and picked up the camera.
Beautiful.
That's very nice.
Oh,
Wow.
I don't know, I've not been able to figure out what it is about hummingbirds, but I just can't. Whenever one shows up, I have to stop whatever I'm doing and watch it. And one of the things that I've learned is that these Anna's hummingbirds are really tolerant. So for this shot, I actually stepped outside onto the patio and took the picture from about 5 or 6 feet away from the bird.
wow.
As long as you don't make any quick moves to startle them, the hummingbirds at least are quite tolerant. And this is the other extreme. The man-tailed pigeons won't tolerate anything. So if they see any kind of movement, they're gone. And so these pictures are taken from well back in the kitchen. So I'm in shadow. And even then, I have to move very, very slowly. I should say that I hadn't seen a band-tailed pigeon for literally decades. And I'm not a bird watcher. I don't go out looking for birds. So I just hadn't seen them. But when the first one showed up at my feeder, I was really excited. But 2 weeks later, when I had 15 of them, I wasn't so excited.
We had a member who used to call them band-tailed pigs.
I actually have got a couple of pictures I took the other day of two different birds, band-tails. One of them has got the normal slim-looking neck like you just saw. The other one, the neck was absolutely swollen. I mean, that thing had taken in so many sunflower seeds that its crop was just floating. Even the chickadees are fun. I mean, sure, I'm photographing the same species again and again, but
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Nice.
every picture is a little bit different.
nice.
And the chickadees present their own technical problem. The white patch on their neck tends to overexpose. So if you've got the exposure right for the darker part of the body, you've got this burned out white neck. And achieving some sort of a balance between those two is difficult.
No, wow.
Mm.
So I'm still working on it. Now, I mentioned I set up the perches so as to be sure I would get an appropriate background. And I should say that a bird photograph is more than just a good picture of a bird. That would be a record shot. But a photograph has got to have a background that doesn't distract from the bird, but at the same time contributes to the interest, the visual interest of the photograph. Chloes are always around. I just love them. They always pose differently. I've got many, many pictures of them, and no two of them are alike.
Oh,
Oh,
it's gorgeous.
love it.
I really look forward to the arrival of the first berry thrush every fall. And consistently every year I have plus or minus 6 of them in the yard. One day this year I counted 11. And that was a real treasure. And
Ron, do you manipulate your photos much after taking them? These seem really, really sharp and crisp.
that most of them come straight out of the camera into the slideshow. It's these days in photography, there's been a shift to depending on computer manipulation as opposed to getting it right in the camera. And that's fine, I guess, if you enjoy spending a lot of time on the computer, but I don't. So I concentrate on developing my technique so that I get it right in the camera, and there's very little that needs to be done. Sometimes I adjust the exposure a little bit. Sometimes I do a bit of cropping. You'll see some of the pictures are square or maybe mailbox shape, but that's about all.
Ron, could you
Yes.
tell us about the shutter speed and the f-stop you're using and the ISO?
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Aperture is totally secondary. But most of these pictures are shot wide open, maximum aperture. The shutter speed is dictated by the flash, which for this camera is a 250th of a second. Now I'm gonna talk more about shutter speed a little bit later. But as far as the ISO, that is the crucial setting. And I'm changing the ISO for the rest of you. That's the sensitivity. That sets the camera for the amount of light it needs to make an adequate exposure. So on a dark day, the ISO number has to be high. On a brighter day, it will be lower. And the higher the ISO number, the lower the quality of the picture. So it's desirable to use a relatively low one. But the way I judge the ISO is according to the background. The ISO determines the brightness of the background, where the flash determines the brightness of the bird. So in fact, using the flash, I'm able to expose separately for the bird and the background. So the Stellar's jays were coming pretty regularly, but they tended to stay back in the bush, and they would pop out to grab a peanut and then disappear again. There's no way that I could photograph it that way. So I put a perch out specifically for them. I set it up right in front of the bush that they tended to hang out in. And within 10 minutes, I had this shot. It was that quick. Now I've photographed Stellar's jays since. None of those pictures comes anywhere near as being as good as that first one. So that was just luck. But it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't put the perch out there.
Right.
Now, who doesn't love bush tits?
Oh,
Oh, he's so cute.
These guys are so much fun just to watch. And again, by observing them, I've learned that they also are very tolerant. And so here again, I've gone outside on the patio and made this photograph. In fact, I think that's the same branch that the hummingbird was perched on. And so I'm again within 5 or 6 feet of the bird. But whenever the bush tits show up, I pick up the camera and I just sit and wait for them to.
Come to you, Wow, detail.
And you all realize how small these birds are. What are they, 2 inches long? And so being able to make a full frame picture of a tiny bird like that is a trick. It requires you to pay attention to the bird and have appropriate equipment, but it is possible.
Ron, it's interesting because normally you see bush tits hanging upside down and all different characters. All yours have been sitting upright, which is quite interesting.
Well, part of the answer to that is that I wouldn't photograph them if they were hanging upside down.
This one also shows the yellow eye, which I think the yellow eye is a female and the black eye is a male.
I didn't know that. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, John Reynolds told us that once. Yeah, that's where I learned it anyway. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you.
Interesting, yeah. Huge little birds.
So the bush tits just go on and on.
Oh,
What's that? Junco.
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 What now? What's the proper name? Is it a dark-eyed junco or Oregon junco?
This one's a dark-eyed junco.
Is the Oregon junco different?
I don't
I
think.
don't know.
The Oregon Junco is a race of dark-eyed juncos.
Okay.
In the past, they called all the ones up and down the coast were always called Oregon Juncos, but then they decided that they're all subspecies of the same thing, and they called the overall species dark-eyed junco to contrast with the yellow-eyed junco that lives down in Texas or somewhere. So we ended up with the correct name for the species is dark-eyed junco, and for our coastal race is Oregon Junco.
That's interesting. Thank you.
And some of you will have seen, sorry for butting in, but some of you will have seen some with no red or reddish on their back or their flanks. And with the black head of the males is less black. And those are Cassiar juncos. It's sort of an unnamed race or subspecies.
Oh,
And they live up in the Cassiar Mountains. They're very close to the Rocky Mountain subspecies, which is the gray-headed one. So if you watch for them, you'll see one. Whenever I see one in my yard, I like to quick grab a picture.
but so they do show up here, do they?
Yeah, rarely. You have to look at a lot of juncos to see a Cassiar junco. And besides, they look a bit like the females because the females have a sort of a grayish head. The key is that this one has a little bit of reddish on the back and also on the flanks. Sometimes it shows up more on the flanks, but the Cassiar ones have no hint of reddish or pink anywhere.
Yeah.
Is that another name now for the slate colored junco, the Cassiar?
No, the slate colored is the Rocky Mountain subspecies, I think. I'm not really sure, but I think that's right. A lot of people don't recognize the Cassiar. It's not a named subspecies, apparently. It's just a sort of a recognizable race. Probably you would call it a race of the slate colored. But it's quite different from ours once you get to look at it. Thanks, Ron. Good work.
Welcome. So for years, I only ever saw one siskin. And wouldn't you know, this year, when they're having a problem, they're all over the place. So I'm having to continually clean up after them. Fortunately, they're not going to the feeder, they're feeding strictly on the ground. I put sunflower seed out every day for the ground feeders, the berry thrushes, and that's where these guys stay. So I have a pressure washer that I keep handy, and I periodically just use the pressure washer to clean off the patio. I understand that the virus they carry is transmitted through feces, so it's a matter of cleaning that up. But these also are a very small bird and very, very hard to approach. So without being able to shoot from inside, but still being very careful of to move slowly, these kind of pictures would not be possible. You just couldn't do them in the field.
Uh,
I had pileated woodpeckers coming regularly to my suet cage. Unfortunately, I also had a couple of crows that just demolished the suet, and that's what the mesh is about. It's a crow baffle. They can't perch. The crows, I mean, can't perch, so they can only hang in there by doing a lot of flapping, and the wire mesh stops them from flapping, and after a while they lose interest and go away. But how am I going to photograph the pileated woodpeckers and make them look natural? Well, I'm quite proud of this solution. I got a section of tree trunk about 6 inches in diameter. I cut off a piece about 30 inches long. I drilled a couple of holes in it, 3/4 inches in diameter, and stuffed the holes with suet.
Yeah.
And then I hung that up from my feeder line. And in no time at all, they were coming regularly. They just loved this. What an easy meal for them.
No. Fabulous picture.
oh, wow.
The
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
thing about the pileated woodpeckers is they learn. They got used to me moving around. And so for these pictures, I was able to walk out on the patio, stand right below them, again, less than 6 feet, and just shoot away to my heart's content.
Wow.
Yeah.
But that idea of the hanging log turned out to have wide benefits, because not only did I end up with all 4 of the woodpeckers that I ever see around here.
Little downy.
Ron, can you tell us again the diameter of the holes you drilled that you packed with suet, please?
About 3/4 of an inch and a couple of inches deep. That is not particularly critical. I made the hole big enough that I could get my thumb in there to squish the suet into the bottom of the hole. Now, this gives you a little bit of better idea of all of these pictures of the importance of the flash. So the green in the background are trees that only catch the light late in the afternoon, and it's only for a fairly short time that they are lit up and giving me the kind of background I want. But by that time of the day, the log is in deep shadow. It's in the shadow of the house. And so there's no light getting to the bird at all. So the flash is illuminating the bird, and the camera is exposing for the Without the flash, it would not be able to get these pictures at all.
Ron, can I interrupt you? Sorry, it's the wine. But if you could just go back to the downy or the the hairy there. One thing I learned from Al Grass, which I found really, really interesting over the years, is that the pattern of the white spots on each bird is individual. And so you can keep track of individual birds that come to your suet feeder, as Ron has arranged here, or your regular suet feeder. So what I do is I draw a left wing, and I would call this a 2, 3, 4, 2 or something. Like I might draw that pattern out.
Yeah.
And it's a male. And so I can just follow that bird over the years. And
Yeah.
ditto for the downy.
Yeah, that's a fantastic idea. I
Yeah,
don't have to draw them. I'll just take pictures of them.
well, yes, you can do that. Now their feathers shift around a little bit, but they're really different between individuals.
For heaven's sake.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow, that's interesting.
I'm glad you didn't know that. Okay, I thought. Okay.
No. Don't forget, I'm a photographer. I'm not a birder, so I'm really interested in learning anything you got to. Now, the other thing about this approach is that you can't use the same log for every picture because people are going to start recognizing the log.
The lichen.
And they're going to realize, like, you're getting the lowdown here, but ordinarily, I want to present these pictures as a natural photograph of and perfectly legitimate photograph of the bird. But if every bird is showing up on the same log, it's liable to give the show away.
Oh, look at
Oh,
it.
Love it.
Oh, my goodness, that's cool. That is fabulous.
Feisty little guys.
Oh.
Oh, my all-time favorite.
oh,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my favorite. Yes. More.
Birds that are showing up there.
Now, am I correct in thinking that we do not have the white-bellied nuthatch here? Does anybody know?
Is Lee still on?
Yeah.
Ask Lee.
Apparently they come into the Okanagan.
Yeah.
I've been kind of watching for them, and they could be here. They're not very far south, but as far as I know, they just come into the Okanagan, not very far, but they don't come on the coast much or at all.
So then it snowed, and that created a whole new situation. And it also completely changed all my background. So now it's like starting all over again.
Yes.
How many places in the world
Oh,
wow.
is that possible?
Hummingbirds sting.
The color is
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, look at his back.
And when it gets cold like that, I put a heat lamp on my hummingbird feeder to make sure they keep coming. But hummingbirds with snow,
Unbelievable.
that's got to
I
be
love
pretty special.
My goodness.
Now, I said before that in good weather, I'm sitting with the patio door open, but I can't do that in the winter. So now, in spite of me all my life thinking that it's better not to take pictures through glass, well, that's what I'm doing. I'm shooting through a double pane patio door, and the glass, as long as you don't have any reflections from inside the house, the glass has no effect on the sharpness of the picture at all. You can look at these pictures and you can see hairs on the bird that are completely sharp.
Yeah.
Wouldn't the flash mess it up though? The bounce off the glass?
Just hold that thought.
Okay.
I got an answer for you, but coming up. The snow just makes all the difference. But the snow creates.
Uh-oh,
It's all locked off the ship.
There's the winter colors.
that's cold, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's technical problems with snow because getting the kind of detail that you see in the foreground here to show,
There's black rat.
and still getting the darker bird properly exposed is really hard. And most of these pictures, actually, the snow is kind of washed out. But the bird had to come first.
Oh, wow.
Gorgeous creatures.
Yeah, so
Not in-
I'm shooting through the glass. The weather is not great. It's kind of dull and dark out. I'm finding that I'm having to push the ISO way higher than I would prefer to do. I really need to use the flash. But I've been doing this for 60 years. And for 60 years, I have firmly believed that you cannot point a flash at a window or a mirror without getting a reflection that's going to ruin the picture. But I'm sitting here getting frustrated. The birds are there. I've got lots of opportunities to photograph. So what the heck? Let's just try it. And so I turned on the flash and it worked perfectly.
Is your
The
camera very
pictures are
close?
all taken through the glass with the flash.
Is it very close to the glass, the camera?
No, not particularly, but that's kind of relevant. What I've figured out, the reason that it works is that the flash is sitting above the lens. And I'm using this long telephoto lens, which is only looking through a small part of the window. So the flash reflection happens, but it's up here, but the lens is looking down here. And so the lens is just looking through a different part of the window, and the light from the flash gets to the bird without any trouble. And it's just reliable as could be. Now, this isn't going to work with every piece of equipment. For example, a camera with a built-in flash, that built-in flash will be just great for filling, using, for photographing the birds outside. You don't need a lot of light, as I've indicated. In fact, if you try to use a full-size shoe mount flash, you probably will not be able to dial it down far enough. You're gonna have to put something over the flash to cut back on the amount of light it produces. But anyways, but trying to shoot through glass with a built-in flash is probably not going to work, because the built-in flash is so close to the lens that you probably will see a reflection from that.
Pretty good.
Yes.
But if he got different spots
And-
too.
I keep photographing the same birds over and over again, as I've said, but no two poses are the same. You always hope for a picture that's better than anything you've done so far, which is the case here. I mean, look at, I'm going to just go back for a sec. So that there's nothing wrong with that picture, but the pose is just more dynamic in this one.
For sure.
So you don't photograph a bird and sort of get something that looks okay and then give up. You keep on going back, trying for something better. Besides, it's fun. So this is, I just wanted to give you an example. A week ago Sunday, dark, raining, gloomy, and yet I spent an hour or so sitting at the table, and in spite of that miserable weather, I'm still able to get really great photographs using these techniques. You can see the rain coming down over
Oh.
here. Well,
Yeah.
I'm not spoofing you.
I got some more beautiful pictures.
See the drops of water on the back of the bird
Oh, wow, yeah.
and on the perch.
Hey, Ron, I'm just wondering what ISO setting you're setting it at, and then when you're using your flash, are you using it high-speed sync mode?
No. Sorry, I should have mentioned that. With this camera, the highest shutter speed you can use with the flash is 250th of a second. So all of these flash pictures are taken with the flash, with the shutter speed at a 250th of a second. So that sounds
Because you can
questionable.
use it in the
First of
flash
all,
when
hand
it's-
holding a 700 millimeter lens is something that most people wouldn't even attempt. Secondly, hand holding at a 250th of a second should not be possible at all. But when the flash fires, the flash itself only lasts for at most a thousandth of a second.
Very fast, yeah.
And it could easily be as brief as a 20,000th of a second. So that freezes a sharp image. But then the shutter stays open for quite a bit longer than that, and to record the ambient light on the background. While that shutter stays open, recording the ambient light, that should, as we would expect, produce a blurred image around the sharp flash image caused by camera movement. But it doesn't happen. And that's because of the technology. Image stabilization is so good now that that is what is allowing me to handhold at a 250th of a second. A few years ago, using the best equipment that was available, 10 years, even less than 10 years ago, these pictures wouldn't be possible. It just wouldn't. And using a tripod is out of the question because it just slows you down too much. You cannot react quickly enough to catch these birds if you're anchored to a tripod. This is,
Nice listen.
again, this is in the rain cloud, but in a miserable day. You can see the rain coming down, but I just love this background and the way it's kind of highlights the
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
bird.
Yeah, it does. The painting.
Aw.
Oh, my.
So I'm totally independent of the weather, and heck, I'm even able to take pictures quite late in the evening when it's getting pretty dark out there. If I see something interesting happening,
This is flash.
and it's just completely fun. Now, I did another experiment strictly because I had lots of opportunities. You see the streaks of the rain coming down. You don't get that if you're using a high shutter speed. You only get streaks, and I first started playing with this back when it was snowing. I wanted to get the streaks of the snowflakes coming down. And so I started experimenting with shutter speed. And I found that the combination of the flash, image stabilization on this camera, I can consistently get sharp pictures at an 80th of a second.
Oh my God.
That's
So
just not possible. But I did it time and time again, and it works. And then I pushed it even further. Let me see what's coming up. Oh yeah, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Here's the pictures with the snow coming down, and I started experimenting with the shutter speed. So these pictures are made at an 80th of a second, and they are sharp.
Yeah, that's just the flash. Yeah.
And yet the snow is
With just
streaked,
Streaked, yeah.
just as I hoped. See, they're all sharp. So again, that's the technology working. Now, this is not something I would recommend to anybody, but if you're inclined, you can play with it, because it never occurred to me that this could even be possible. But then I pushed it even further.
Yeah.
This picture was made at a 60th of a second. Hand holding a 700 millimeter lens at a 60th of a second, man. So nobody needs a tripod anymore.
But is the flash then taking over and freezing the action?
Yes, but like I say, the flash goes off, but then the shutter stays open, and that's when the blurring should happen after the flash.
Right.
But it doesn't. So I'm just all of these principles that I've firmly believed in for decades are now all out the window thanks to camera technology.
It's beautiful.
And
Oh, wow.
just I keep just record shots of the occasional rare guys that show up. I think this is a yellow warbler.
Yeah.
The other was a purple finch.
Oh, wow.
Now this is a weird one. I don't get robins in my yard. And this is the only time I've ever had a robin on one of my perches. And if the camera hadn't been handy, I wouldn't have been able to get this picture. But I don't understand it, because the soil behind the patio is full of worms when I dig it up. I don't get it. But how about this guy?
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's a mutant.
What's nice.
What is it?
Nice.
It's a junco, but he's got a white head.
A mutant, I would say.
Yes.
Albino, an albino junco.
I believe they call it Lukism.
Lukism.
And it's I think it's in other birds, but I've only ever seen it in juncos. But I'm not any expert on it at all. Just a few
So you have seen it in juncos before, though, have you?
I've had a few in my yard with
nice.
this
Okay.
kind of white small patches or bigger patches. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
Yes, it does.
Now I mentioned the bird bath.
That's a
I never realized, I kind of thought having a bird bath would be a good idea, but I didn't realize how important it is. Everybody, absolutely everybody uses that bird bath.
Oh my goodness. It's the chestnut-sided chickadee that I've been trying.
Wow.
But it's not just for bathing. They use it for drinking as well. And it was kind of a revelation during the really cold weather we had. The bird bath was frozen. And the very thrushes were getting up there trying to get a drink. And that kind of a light bulb went on, and I realized that in this weather, they don't have any access to water at all. And so now, whenever we've had a really cold night, I go out first thing in the morning and pour hot water in there to melt part of the ice. And of course, the water goes cold immediately, so there's no damage to the bird, but they have access to the drinking water. So this bird bath has been a real asset. Now, this isn't exactly from my kitchen, but it's from my yard. About a year and a half ago, the city was taking down a couple of what they called hazard trees, dead trees in the ravine just behind my fence line. And so I went over and I asked the arborist if they would leave the lower 40 feet of the trunk for the woodpeckers. And they did. And in almost no time, the pileated woodpeckers moved in and started this excavation. Unfortunately, I can see this tree from my office window. And about 3 weeks ago, I looked out and I could see a woodpecker working away. And so I picked up the camera and I tiptoed up along the back of my property. And I moved very slowly, very quietly. And eventually I was less than 10 feet away from it. It was still pecking away. I was close enough that I could see up here the tunnels from the larvae that the woodpecker was digging for, and I could see the black tongue come out and lick them up. And while I was there, the male flew in. So obviously my presence was not affecting them in the slightest. I stood there and took pictures for over an hour, and then I tiptoed away, and they were still working. They were totally unaware that I'd been there, and that's my story.
Wow.
Wow.
Really nice.
That was awesome.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Bravo. That was great.
I've turned into a pretty keen bird photographer.
Yeah.
The
Sure
last
have.
trip-
So Ron, if you can turn off the screen share.
Oh. Not sharing. Okay, there we go. All right.
So Ron, it's quite amazing that, you know, I knew you're an incredible photographer, but you've put it up just 2 more levels for me. It's incredible.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
fabulous.
Right.
The last trip I made before we got shut down was to Brazil, specifically to photograph birds. So I've got a pretty interesting slideshow from Brazil if you're interested sometime when we get back to face-to-face meetings.
Right.
Okay. That's not set up for Zoom, but anyway, throw that out there.
Okay. Sounds good. Hey, does anybody have any questions?
I'm curious on what you feed your birds. You mentioned sunflowers. Are they shelled, not shelled? And I know you have peanuts. What else have you got out there?
That's it. Shelled sunflower seeds.
Okay.
Now I've got a major problem with squirrels, and so what I'm doing now, I was sort of reading on the internet, people suggesting you set up separate feeding stations for the squirrels and for the birds. Well, you put the same thing in both places, the squirrels are just going to spread out and they're still going to get most of the seed. So I was thinking about how I can separate them. I throw a cupful of seeds out every morning beyond the patio, fully shelled, and the squirrels tend to stay with that. But for the birds, I bought one of those cheap coffee grinders, the kind that just smash the beans up rather than grinding them up. And I just give them the seeds a brief bzz, and to break up the seeds, that makes the kernels small enough that the squirrels can't be bothered. But the birds love it. And so that's my routine now. A cup for the cup of seeds for the squirrels, and a cup of ground seeds for the birds. And they clean those up every day, so I don't have any problem with rats coming around.
There is an excellent feeder you can get with a wire cage on a spring, and when a heavy bird or a squirrel goes down, it pulls down the cage so they can't access the seeds, and that actually keeps them away from my feeders.
I guess we need out.
Those things are so expensive that completely turned me off. So you couldn't really see it, but I built 3-foot square plexiglass roofs over my feeders, so the squirrels can get on top of the roof, but they can't get down to the feeder. And so that's how I've solved that problem. It's interesting. Squirrels don't even try anymore.
So Ron, just to go into a chat, we've had many people that have said how wonderful the presentation was and glorious photographs. So just want to make sure that we capture that. Someone did ask where you live and shoot. So this is in your home. Is it in Port Moody or Coquitlam?
Yeah, it's Port Moody and Heritage Mountain.
Okay.
And as I say, it's the Nunes Creek ravine that's behind the house. So
And
it's the first section of the Heritage Mountain development. We've been here for 37 years.
And someone was asking about grinding the sunflower seeds with the shell on or off.
Yeah, with the shell on. You break up the shell and break up the kernel a little bit. Don't go too far, because otherwise you just get powder. But yeah, I just put the shelled sunflower seeds in the coffee grinder and toss them out on the patio. And then, as I said earlier, I regularly use the pressure washer to clean the patio off, and that sort of takes care of all the leftovers shells.
Does anybody have any questions?
I have one for Ron.
Perfect.
I haven't seen you for a long time, so since you're
hey,
shooting
bud,
from
yeah.
under the house, no wonder I don't see you anywhere outside.
Yeah, that's true. One of my friends, when I showed him these pictures, he complained. He says, "No wonder I don't see any birds when I go out. You've got them all." Well, you guys have been a great audience. Thank you very much for.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. That was great.
Yes, Ron. Thank you so
Thanks,
much
Ron.
for
More
coming forward
wonderful.
with this. So, if anybody knows of anybody that would like to do a presentation, or if people are interested in it, please contact me. I'm Ian, and thanks very much again, Ron.
You're welcome.
And not unless anybody wants to talk about any other wildlife sightings. Well, anybody have any wildlife sightings they want to share? No, Ron had them all, so.
Can't compete.
No, don't want to compete. So anyways, thanks very much, everybody. Our next meeting, I believe I should be looking, I think it's April 13th is our next.
I think it's the 11th. It's a
11th,
Tuesday.
Okay, sorry. Good thing. No, April 13th I've got, a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Is it?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
With John Clegg.
Yep.
How about the Ice Age?
It is the 13th. Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Great. Well, thanks very much, everybody. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. That was brilliant.
Thanks, Ron. Great job.
Yes,
Thank you.
amazing.
Yeah.
See you guys.